So for the last couple of weeks, I've been hearing this phrase a lot. Have a happy and a prosperous new year. But what does it mean to be prosperous? Well, let's talk about that today on Our Connections. So here's the problem with words like prosperous and rich and wealthy, and the terms that we use to describe others or ourselves in today's culture. You see, I wouldn't think of myself as rich, especially if I go driving through Johns Island, which is a very wealthy community here in our town. But then again, if I go down to The Source, which is a homeless ministry here in town, and I sit across the table and I have lunch with somebody who's living out in the woods, I would have to say I'm a very rich person. The reality is this, and that is that if you're watching this video, you have some form of electronic communication with the world, which makes you among the top 8% of the wealthiest people in the world. If you own a car, you're in the top 5% of the wealthiest people in the world. And so we are indeed a rich, a very prosperous people by definition. Paul wrote the young man Timothy, and he said, "Command those who are rich in this world not to be arrogant or to put their hope in their riches, but to put their hope in God." And that's kind of a tough piece of language if we've just admitted we're rich people, and we are rich people. Paul was trying to get Timothy to encourage the people in Timothy's pathway to live their lives in a very generous kind of way. Let me read to you a little bit more of what Paul said, because this is a key to our prosperity this year. He says, "But godliness with contentment is great gain." In other words, living our lives in a godly way and being content with the things that we have is great prosperity. It's great wealth. It is great richness. "For we brought nothing into the world, and we take nothing out of it." It's like somebody said, have you ever seen a hearse with a U-Haul behind it? He says, "But we have food and clothing, and we're going to be content with that." People who want to get rich, they fall into a temptation and a trap, into many foolish and harmful desires that plunge men into ruin and destruction. "For the love of money is a root of all kinds of evil. Some people eager for money have wandered from the faith and have pierced themselves with many griefs." They've hooked up with things that are not a prosperity. Here's the key that I want us to understand as we move into this new year. Number one is that life lived well is a life that is given well. A life of giving leads to a life of living. But we have to learn to be content. Does that mean to be satisfied and to not to strive for higher goals? Absolutely not. But it is to be accepting of things as they are, not as we would have them. To be content is to find our happiness and our joy in what God has given us, and then realize that everything that we have already belongs to God, and we are to be stewards of that. God being a generous God, He did what? He was generous with all He had, including His Son, Jesus Christ. So if you're looking to be prosperous this year, if you're looking to have a happy and a prosperous new year, learn to be godly with contentment. Learn to live a life of godliness, a life of holiness, which doesn't mean perfection, but it means to realize you're living your life set apart. You're living your life consecrated unto God, which means that everything that you have is holy. It is consecrated. It belongs to God, and you are a steward of it, and how you manage and steward that which you have is a key to the happiness and the prosperity that's in your life. Have a blessed weekend, and we look forward to seeing many of you this Sunday at our Sunday celebration.